Good evening. It's Tuesday, April the 5th, about 10:15 p.m. My name is Shay Gibson with Wind Alert. This is your Chucktown Wind Report for Wednesday and Thursday. I'll talk a little bit about Friday and Saturday. I know a lot of people have the Fort to Battery race on their minds, so I'll discuss a little bit of that, but we still are a few days out, a little bit early to really tell what's going to happen. Models are kind of shifting in directions and speed, so let's keep that in mind that things are apt to change daily with the models for Saturday. So going forward, let's start with today. High pressure has been our main player for today. We started out with some pretty strong northerlies this morning, and then late this afternoon around 5:40, 5:45 p.m., the winds leaned on shore and cranked up, and that has been the case all the way down the coast as this cold front slowly makes its way down, and the gradient is built in behind it. This offshore troughing is helping with that, with the gradient built in along the coastline. So that's how one of the main reasons why the wind actually cranked up is because there's some of this nearshore troughing that is helping with that drier air, that drier, cooler air work down the coastline and working to the warmer landmass throughout the day. But anyways, so for tomorrow, it looks like this high pressure is going to slide a little bit to the east. That means the flow is going to go more east, and that typically means that winds get weaker. Now we could see some east-northeasterlies crank up to mid to upper teens by late morning and then eventually fade east as the day goes on. We could get some of that east-northeast wind to stick for a little while, but I'm going to go ahead and call for east-northeasterlies in the morning, 14 to 18 knots, fading as the day goes on from the east, and then possibly fall to about 12 to 16 knots as time goes on for tomorrow. Now, as we get into Thursday, here's our low pressure out here. It's going to be heading towards the Great Lakes. It's going to drop a cold front to approach the southeast region. This high pressure will be moving out into the Atlantic, positioning just north of Bermuda, which will give us that southerly flow, that convergent flow ahead of the boundary. And that models are showing some increases in elevations and winds ahead of that, but we still have to be careful because our water temperatures are still a little bit on the cool side, around 66.6 degrees. So that's kind of what's going to happen for Thursday. Watching this area of high pressure moving in behind that cold front for Friday and even into Saturday. It just depends on where this is going to go. If it drops down towards the Gulf states, we may have a westerly wind. If it stays more north, we'll have more of a northwesterly wind. So that's a little far out. Let's not get too far ahead in that. Let's go ahead and take a look at Datascope for the Charleston area. We're still showing this strong gradient to our north at Winyah Bay, 21 to 25 knots. We saw those winds crank up along the coast. Let's zoom into Charleston and take a look at the Isle of Palms. And right now we're still seeing 17 to 22 knots at Folly Beach, 13 to 20 at Isle of Palms. You can see that period where the winds really cranked up as they leaned on shore and then they backed offshore a little bit before 8, and then right after 8 the winds sort of fizzled out as the winds went offshore for the land shadowing effect. So taking a look at, I'm going to use the Folly Beach Pier for the forecast models for tomorrow, and I've already activated them all. And as we look into tomorrow morning, we see some of this coupling of the sea breeze with a little bit of elevation. Now the trend is to fade out, but this could be backed up by a couple of hours should we get that east-northeasterly flow to hold on to the coast for a little while longer. That tends to happen and actually comes up to mid-teens, so I'm going to stick with 14 to 18 knots until at least we get past about 1 or 2 p.m. and then we drop down as winds go more east and even possibly southeast. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Down here below at the GFS model outlook, Thursday is a little bit iffy. I definitely want to take a look at that because the cold front approach, depending on how strong it is how fast the winds are going to be going. So you can see the GFS model really taking off. The Wave Watch 3 all the way up to 30 knots by 8 a.m. That doesn't seem very realistic. We may be looking more at what the NAM 5K are saying right around here, around 20 knots early, and then the front passes through Thursday morning, and then we start to get a westerly flow in behind that. So when you see a southerly flow fade to the west over a long period of time, it means it's a slow transition of that front moving offshore, and it could take a few hours before that happens. So the build for the afternoon looks healthy. As we get into Friday, the westerly winds really crank up from a gradient from the high pressure to the west, and then as we look into Saturday, we see that gradient holding through the morning. There's a little bit of a dip the models are showing. That could just be while high pressure reorganizes to the west. But then again, we are several days out, so we don't want to get too far ahead, but we could be looking at a westerly flow or west-northwesterly flow for Saturday. And with that said, I think that's going to do it for the Chucktown Wind Report. So I'll be back on tomorrow night, and we will talk a little bit more about Friday and also a little bit more about Saturday as well. As we get closer to the weekend, things become a little bit clearer. Till then, take care, and thanks for watching.